The show that doesn't grab them by the but does occasionally kick them in the ball. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network.
It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network. Welcome to another fun-filled, action-packed, adventurous... Oh, who am I kidding? We're going to talk about the non-existent Korean summit, and I'll tell you about what I mean in a second. We'll also talk about Trump at his flag-humping finest, and... we'll cover a little bit of the basics of free speech. Before we get to all of that, first, brief introductions are in line. Hello, I am your host, a critical thinker, a problem solver, a guy that is absolutely sore because my wife is forcing me in this 90-day workout, and my name is Shaggy Jenkins. You can find my tortured soul at shaggyjenkins.com or wherever fine social media is served at Shaggy Live. The gentleman joining me today from the West District, and dare I say, very lucrative West District area where, God, I read one of those stories where the income is in the six figures. So how I can afford his presence, ladies and gentlemen, I do not know. Please welcome teacher, educator, former politician, Drew Landry.
Hey, Shaggy.
Hey, well, one of these days I'm going to be able to get through that intro without it's Drew.
Well, hey, that's just the way it goes sometimes. Don't worry about it.
Well, let's talk about some things that did kind of tie me up, because in kind of like a pre-show confession, I did say that, of the three stories that we were going to cover today, the hardest one that I wrestled with was our first story. And Drew, the reason why is because looking into what happened between Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Vietnam, of all places, it kind of turned into a non-event.
It was a lot of hoop and holler and all this type of rigmarole and, all this, circumstance and pomp and all these great things that, the president was really talking about with us. And turns out, not a whole lot really took place. He just, got it from the table and said, nope, not doing it, and then walked out. And, I'm going to say this, and this may shock you, but I'm not the biggest president fan. Okay, I'm not one of his big rah people.
Let me get my shocked face on. Hang on, Drew.
Well,
really?
You'll still need it.
Okay.
But I do have to say this, is that if you want to make a deal and that's not what you agree to, I have to commend the president for saying, you know what, I don't like this, I'm getting up and I'm leaving. And for anyone who's bought a car, anyone who's tried to negotiate anything at all, you can, that's one of your options, is to say, you know what, I don't think I'm going to buy this car today. I don't think I'm going to do this deal on this mortgage. I don't think, insert whatever the particular negotiation that you're in, and then you just get up and leave. That's an interesting maneuver, and for the president to say, this is what they wanted, I'm not doing it. Now, we can also talk about the whole thing about how Kim Jong-un said, well, that's not what we did. And they said they wanted this. So you're kind of like, okay, all right, sure. And you feed everybody in North Korea.
Well, I kind of do want to do this because you brought up a very interesting scenario. One, of which I know people can understand. And two, please, if you are a used car dealer, do not hate me for the next 120 seconds of this broadcast, because what I'm about to do is about to spill just a little bit of the occupational tea that you deal with. Okay, this is the thing. Drew, a while back, me and my wife were going to go look for a new car, and here's the thing. The price and the payments kept seeming a little unreasonable for the budget that we had set aside for said car. So I had told her time and time again, and this is the thing, it freaked her the hell out. Like she wanted to kill me halfway through this negotiation process, but this is why. A long time ago, not the art of the deal was made apparent to me, as Donald Trump would have everybody to expect is the right way of doing things. I was taught about the art of the no deal, and it was called the turnaway. Now, Drew, for the uneducated, the turnaway is actually very diplomatic, but, okay, please do not hate me, used car salespeople, because here's the thing. That's one of the places that you can put it into effect in your personal life just to see its application and its power. Let me explain. Remember how I set this whole scenario up with how me and my wife were going to buy a car? Well, the price kept coming wrong. The payments kept coming wrong. The interest rate coming wrong. And this guy kept telling me time and time again, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And finally, and this is an exhaustive, God, I am so sorry I put my wife through this. It was an exhaustive 2-hour and 45-minute negotiation. And right at the end of it, when my wife has got like tears in her eyes, ready to choke the life out of her husband, I look at the guy and I'm like, no deal. And I stand up and I walk away and I go stand outside. I don't leave. I don't get in my car. I just go and I stand outside like I'm going to take some air. Guess what happened, Drew?
I'm guessing that salesman came running after you.
Yes, that's exactly what they did. And eventually, after one final offer, we were able to get something that was within our budget, within our payments, and within our life plan. It wasn't the art of the deal that did it. I didn't sit there and negotiate it. I walked away from it. And that's one thing that people don't understand, because on both sides of the political aisle, a lot of people are saying, hey, thank God Trump walked away from this, because the State Department for the longest time has been telling him this is a bad idea. So has Trump finally started listening to advice?
No, I don't think he has. I think that was just his own little, look, I'm going to do this and it's going to be great because I'm doing it. That's his own little world there. But I have to commend him on it, though, because I just say, look, that's what you have to do whenever you get a deal and you don't like it. And, well, that's it. I'm out. But I do have to, taking advice, I don't really think he's into that. I mean, I'm not going to get into this whole psychoanalysis over the president, but he just seems like he has the ego that he doesn't really want to take advice from people, especially those who he may not know. I've often compared him to a mobster, like, it's a mobster running the government. And that's kind of, I have no experience with mobsters and they would probably whack me, but, for saying those types of things, but still, this is the kind of mentality that he has. I mean, if you looked at his little post-game press conference, he was asked about the family of the college student, and if he talked about that, and all the intelligence said, no, North Korea, Kim Jong-un, they killed that young man. And he goes, well, look, I asked him about it. He said he felt really bad about it, didn't know anything about it, so I took him at his word. This is a guy who is just, takes the word of dictators and authoritarians and people we don't trust over our own intelligence. And so I don't think he's following anybody's advice.
Okay. Well, as long as we're going down the not listening to anybody avenue, here's the thing. And this is almost gives you one of those like stress headaches right between your eyes. This is the part where my poor deceased grandmother would come up and pat down my forehead and go, "You're gonna get the ugly lines. Your face already doesn't need any help. Just smooth that down, or else you're gonna get the ugly lines." So, trying to prevent my ugly lines when we talk about this thing, it is kind of frustrating when I try to figure out, if Donald Trump isn't listening to the State Department, exactly what made him walk away from somebody who, dare I say, he was in a love affair with. Drew, Can you kind of make this make sense to me?
Yeah, I can try, but I don't know if I'm going to do it. I think there might be some people he will listen to, maybe his own family, maybe someone tried to talk to them, and they said, if they're not doing denuclearization, you're not doing anything. Maybe the sanctions was something that they didn't want to talk about. I mean, that's the best thing that I can really get a hold of is that they crossed the line that he didn't want to talk about, and it wasn't on any kind of, pre-talk agreement or any, and then they're like, nope, nope, you're mentioning that. Okay, we're gone. But, this is why that, just to give some context to your audience about, how these big type of meetings work is that they, people lower level will spend months, if not even a year in advance of this meeting, negotiating all of the terms. And it goes up and up and up and up and up until by the time that you have the two heads of government meeting, all they're going to do is sign a piece of paper, eat dinner, and then they're going to get out of there. And that's, you might say, well, what's the point of that? The point of that is that they're actually signing whatever agreement that they came to because they've been negotiating for the past year over all the terms. President Trump doesn't want to do that. He wants to get in there and just, he argues that he's this great deal maker I'm having a tough time really thinking about all that, to be honest.
Okay, before you start to get the ugly lines on the forehead too, Drew, I apologize to your grandmother now.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best for your little boy.
Yeah.
All right, but here's the thing. You are right, because, look, most of the time when it comes to these big diplomatic things, by the time the two leaders of those countries come into play, they're more of a figurehead stamp of approval on the work of their administrations and diplomats beneath them, not so much of people that get their hands dirty. However, let's talk about the logic of Kim Jong-un and the position of North Korea as it pertains to this particular Vietnam summit. Once again, can I go ahead and say how funny it was that old Bone Spurs ended up in Vietnam anyway? If I don't get at least one dig a show, it's not a good show. Now, back to the topic at hand. Here's the thing. When we talk about this whole act between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, Un cannot go back as dear leader to North Korea with anything less than a complete victory, because as it stands, the propaganda and the amount of rhetoric and hatred drawn up against the United States in North Korea and their state-run media is immense. So to be able to overcome this public sentiment that they themselves have whipped up, they have to, as the sports analogy says, go big or go home. So from their perspective, going into this whole Vietnam summit, when they viewed denuclearization as an option of negotiation, it wasn't just they would denuclearize, was it, Drew?
No, it was also the fact that they wanted the sanctions lifted, all sanctions that we have, all their assets unfrozen, and that was part of what they wanted. I mean, that was a big part in saying, look, unfreeze our assets, and nope, not doing that. We tried that in the 90s because President Clinton had some reassurances from Un's father, Kim Jong-il, saying, yeah, sure, I won't do that. No, I'll just use them for food, and then he ends up using on the nuclear program. So, not exactly a good move there, but that's what happened. And I guess you have to take somebody at their word until you find out who they are, and that's, egg was on our face on that. But we kind of learned again here that we can't really, I think that just absolutely proves that North Korea and its leadership just can't be trusted. And I think that was one of the parts that the president said, you know what, we're out.
Yeah, because this is the thing that I kind of want to bring in, because when we talked about earlier, diplomats usually do these negotiations months and years in advance. Kim Jong-un pulled out another kind of thing that he wanted in this denuclearization agreement that had nothing to do with the economy, but had everything to do with the United States giving up all of its nuclear programs as well. In other words, North Korea said, hey, if we're going to denuclearize, you have to go to 100% denuclearization. And that's when Donald Trump goes, I don't know what that means, but I better leave. and he left the deal. And I only say that, and it's not kind of facetious, because time and time again, Donald Trump doesn't seem to understand the definition of what denuclearization means, going sometimes as far as including things like power plants or other commercial uses of nuclear-based products, and then sometimes just saying that it's outright, a bomb is a bomb is a bomb, and going, no, there's classes of bombs. There's traditional bombs. There's the Moab, the mother of all bombs. There's the father of all bombs. There's a lot of non-nuclear and only radiation-charged kind of charges that fall well under the definition of what we could talk about in a denuclearization program. Whoa. Drew, I almost sound smart there. Okay.
I thought that was great.
But that was just it. It was an 11th hour surprise when diplomats, had they went through the traditional process of negotiating a deal like this, would have vetted something like that out fairly early in the process, wouldn't you say?
I would. I mean, this is just, this is a shoot from the hip type of administration, at least. Well, it doesn't want to be ran that way. And I think a lot of those people the State Department and Defense Department bureaucrats who've been working in there for years and years and have tremendous experience in doing stuff like this would be very offended and should be offended by what happened in Vietnam. But, look, but this guy, ill, and the president have just, he just feels like that they can just talk to anybody, and on any given term, on any given time space. And what he's figuring out is that's not how this is going to work. Mm-hmm. And it would have been better if he would have listened to other people who've done this before, as opposed to going there, finding out the hard way, and quite frankly, not having the best summit that he really should have. Let's just be honest here. This was a good opportunity for the president to do something that would have been really worthwhile, and it didn't really happen that way. And now, as I mentioned earlier at the top of this, I have to give him credit for walking away from a bad deal. I just have to. But at the same time, he shouldn't have been doing a lot of negotiating. This should have been done in a long process, and that just speaks to his character and his personality.
Yeah, because before we turn away in this into our next story, which was the summit that Trump thought he absolutely owned and everybody's been scratching their head about in the aftermath of, the final thing that I want to bring in this is when it comes to war dog himself, John Bolton, the president, when he came back and had his closing I walked away from the deal press conference, John Bolton says, those comments that he made about the student that went over there living and came back dead? Even though I'm directly appointed by the president and I work in the cabinet directly responsible for those sort of things and monitoring those sort of things, I have no attachment to the president's comments. Now, what does it mean when a guy with the characteristics of a John Bolton is trying to distance himself from you?
That is so bizarre. I mean, John Bolton was, he's, one of the more controversial figures in the Bush years. Had no place at all in the Obama White House, and not just for philosophical or ideological reasons, but just for pure, technical and know-how reasons. And then he finds a great home in the Trump administration, and he's given a whole host of duties. And this is like his big home. I mean, he's got figuratively speaking here, he's got a lot of weight to really pull. And then he says something like this. Really head scratching, odd, make you do the side dog, face look like So, it's just so odd. You hit the nail on the head. I have no better way to describe that.
Yeah, because, look, John Bolton, war-warist that he is, most of the time with his mustached brow, he usually is going, yes, let's go and do the things that are more warlike and more aggressive. Okay, well, not more warlike, but he does favor a very pro-aggressive, hardline diplomacy. Can we say that diplomatically? Yep.
That's about as diplomatic as you can get. And I think the only positive thing going for John Bolton is the fact that his mustache is awesome, and I'm very envious of that because I can't grow one. But you're right. It's but yeah, that's about as diplomatic as you can get. Very, very much on this side of, don't show everything, but show them something, and then show them you're tough. Give them a little push, and see if they're going to mess with you. And let's ruffle some feathers, type of idea here. Not always the best tactic to use, but that's exactly one of his, that's a good way to describe him, is the way you did it. Yeah.
Yeah, so moving away from Jamie Heinemann's mustache mentor and on to stories of Donald Trump grabbing a flag, let's talk a little bit about, and Drew, this is the thing. I'm going to ask you a very obvious question. Is the CPAC one of the most endearing non-rally kind of places that the president can appear in lately?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is one of the best places for him. He loves this stuff. He's throwing the red meat out there. This is great for him. He loves it. For him to take that American flag and, just, I don't know how to really describe this, but I felt really bad for Old Glory. Felt that somebody should have called a cop on the president for what happened there, but it was not exactly. Hey, he loved it. And that's his base. That's his base, and they eat everything that he throws at them.
Can I just ask something from a question of? I don't know. Let's see if Drew knows this one. Good luck, buddy. Good luck.
Okay.
Let's
see what we got.
Isn't it against the presidential, or should I say, isn't it against official decorum for any representative of either the House, the executive branch, or the judiciary branch? Isn't it kind of against some sort of code of ethics for them to touch or address a flag in a state setting? Isn't that a flag code thing?
Yeah, I think it is, to be honest. To even be more honest, that's a really good guess, and I don't really know. But I've never seen any other president do that. I've never seen a picture of Washington doing that. I've never seen Lincoln or doing anything like that. Even Grant, who probably had a good reason if he wanted to do that. Him being one of the great victors of the Civil War, he didn't do it. So look, this is a guy who he takes liberties. And when I saw that picture, I thought back to that Hollywood Access tape when he was on the bus with Billy Bush. Just grab him, however. And I thought that's exactly what he is. That's his personality right there. And in front of everybody who loves him, doesn't make any bit of difference. Not a difference.
And I mean, like you said, I would be hard-pressed to hear another president doing this. I mean, Theodore Roosevelt is like, let me rub the Old Glory under my undercarriage here, bully. I mean, and we definitely know, thanks to now new historical evidence, there wasn't a chance in hell FDR was going to be able to pull off a move like that.
No, but and he wasn't going to use it as like some sort of a blanket, so no, that wasn't going to work either.
And let's just go ahead and be honest. Every other president around there kind of had a different respect for the flag because, this is one of those things that people don't understand. President Trump is now in this weird territory of we have no more wartime serving candidates for the highest executive office.
Right. Yeah. That's a pretty interesting thought there. Yeah. I mean, there aren't any older Democrats who served in Vietnam, or none who are in or who have served in the first Desert Storm in the first Gulf War. So I mean, no serious contender out there at this moment has any kind of warlike experience. So bit of an interesting thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Because once again, there's people that are, dare I say, a little bit more reverent of the flag. And I know everybody's going, why are you guys droning on about this? Because the President of the United States humped the flag.
Yeah, that's probably the best thing to say about it. I felt violated. I felt sorry for Old Glory.
You remember that time that the preacher was like at Whitney Houston's funeral and he reached around and he grabbed Ariana Grande by the side boob? That is what the president humping the flag is like to some of us. Now, did I lose? Drew, come back to me, buddy. Are you okay?
We're good.
Okay. I was like, oh boy, those are some guttural sounds of disappointment in humanity. Guttural of disappointment. But that's just it. The CPAC is usually, and we'll probably get into this a little bit more because we're about a minute or so away from our break. But the thing is we'll have to get into this more after that break. CPAC typically, in its original beginnings, would not itself, and this is why I keep bringing up the flag thing, they wouldn't have tolerated that type of behavior, would they? No,
and this just shows you how much that whole side of the American ideology has morphed. It's not what it used to be, and they've gone on their own interesting path. So no, they wouldn't have stood for that, but they do now, and I think it's because they have a guy in the White House.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting how the CPAC will stand for a president coming out bear hugging the flag, and then going into, let's just say, a litany of lies and misguided kind of half-truths about the circumstances around him. And at the end of the day, this is what kind of bothers me the most. Ready, Drew? Mm-hmm. These guys in CPAC will stand up for this type of behavior, but traditionally, the Republican Party would also be the type of party that would kneel or take a knee when they thought that there was some social injustice. So how far have we gone from the original CPAC? We'll find out after the break. Stay close, everyone, and strap yourselves in because we'll be back with more. Up next, it's the Shaggy Jenkins Show.
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything. All I did was dance. I was being scouted for a scholarship. I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor. If making my detox public is gonna help somebody, I'm all for it. Is there any medicine that I can have right now? I'm cold sweating really bad. I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth.
Get involved, get informed. This is the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network.
It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network. Welcome back to it. If you missed any part of the first part of our show, congratulations on being one of the few people in America to still have your dignity and sanity intact. For everybody else, if you'd like to go back and lose those things, just find us wherever fine podcasts are served, places like Spotify and what have you, just by looking up the Shaggy Jenkins Show. Joining me from the West District of Texas and his very spiffy haircut, ladies and gentlemen, I only say that out of hair envy. For a guy named Shaggy, I have very little actual shag. Please give it up for the finely coiffed Drew Landry.
Hey, I'm glad to be back with my...
Well, the thing is, it's like if we were going anywhere around the town at CPAC, people would see me and be like, oh, you must be a part of the alt-right. And they would see you as more of a moderate. But CPAC lately, as long as we're on that subject, seems to attract more of the far-right people, would you say?
Oh, yeah, I would think so. I mean, there are those who will go for the good time and, the camaraderie. I'm sure they go there for, a whole lot of fun. I don't know what fun's there, but, I'm sure for some of them this is like, Comic-Con or something along those lines. I'm sure there's somebody who would view it that way, who goes there. But I just have this idea that, yeah, this is, you're finding a lot of chants about locking them up and a lot
of people
investigations are
cosplaying.
bad.
Remember?
There's a lot of cosplay. Yeah.
There was the person that showed up with Hillary in cuffs. There was the other guy that showed up dressed as an actual wall. I mean, you're right. CPAC is like Comic-Con for people that find taking money away from minorities interesting. Okay.
And they're chanting "Build the wall," and this is what they, but you're right. This is what this is the audience. This is the the hardcore of the hardcore, and they're going to go and let people know that they're not alone in wherever state area that they're in, and they're going to cheer on whoever's there. So, and it's always the usual set of suspects who are going to be your big speakers. There was Michelle Malkin was there, and of course the president will show up, and the vice president, he was there, and so the vice president, it's always interesting because Mike Pence comes off as some sort of this relatively nice thinker, and this guy who is presidential in some way, but in truth of the matter is his rhetoric is incredibly virile, and it's very divisive. But for his audience, they eat it up, and these are the people who are going to CPAC.
Yeah, because, as long as we're talking about some of those names that you just threw out there, one name that, before we get back to Trump and his whole flag-humping ways that we should definitely bring up would be Michelle Malkin, because when it comes to Michelle should probably check her mirror when it comes to the things that she talks about. Would you agree?
I don't really pay much attention to her, to be honest, so I can't really say much about it. She had a column in my local paper, and I don't think she has it anymore, so I don't really pay much attention to her, to be honest. So I can't really honestly comment.
Okay. Think about it this way, all right? Yeah. Michelle Malkin, Asian American, very kind of outspoken, far-right conservative thinker and author and panelist, especially on things like Fox News. Recently, at the CPAC, boy, this thing sounds like a bad operation you would get, but at the CPAC, and it would probably involve your colon, at CPAC, Michelle Malkin basically came out and said, you know what? Being the only Asian on this panel, being the only woman on this panel, diversity is not America's strength. Say a word.
That's odd. I would just be as stunned as I am right now. You got to be kidding me.
You know who she reminds me of? She reminds me of Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder in Hear No Evil, See No Evil. That moment that Gene Wilder revealed to Richard Pryor he was not white. Yeah. That's what I equate Michelle Malkin, like walking off the stage after saying, diversity is not our strength, it's not nothing that makes us greater. She walked off the stage and somebody goes, did you know you ain't white?
Yeah. That's one of the best things about our country is that, we have this optimism that anybody from any background can do what is necessary and become successful. She's part of that story, whether she wants to hear it or not. And, that kind of sentiment, that kind of rhetoric is unhelpful and disingenuous and just flat out wrong. And that's really the best thing that I have to say about that in the nicest way possible.
Well, I'm going to take this a little step personal, shall we?
Sure. Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. Look, this is one of the things that a lot of people don't understand when it comes to the type of dynamic Michelle Malkin was making by saying that sentiment of diversity and gender equality and all these other things, immigration, these are not things that make us a good country. Now, let's analyze real quickly, and I'm sorry for anybody that this is new information to you, but let's analyze the view of the Caucasian people when it comes to women of Asian descent. Because my wife has run into this time and time and time again. See, me and my wife exist as a pair of co-equal partners. If one person does one thing, well, the other person's expected to do that as well. is part of having a healthy relationship with a guy who's not a lazy ass and he actually contributes to the household. Just a little tip, guys, okay? If you're having trouble tonight, do some dishes. Guess what? You might win some points. You clean up your stuff after yourself. Oh, my God, you're her hero. But
I'm going to give you a sticker with a cat on it that says me wow.
yes. So this is the thing. One of the stereotypes that we encounter time and time again, and I can always tell what end of the political spectrum a man is from, when I run into another white male, and I don't mean just your Caucasian male, I mean white male. A lot of the times they talk to me behind my wife's back, and they talk to her like she's subservient or some sort of second class to me. Now, Drew, this is the woman that shares my last name and also who shares my entire life with me. I take it rather personal when somebody like Michelle Malkin comes up and reinforces this very niche, mind you, niche, but this very same racial stereotype. I mean, what is it that makes people like her forget that things like that ubiquitous kind of attitude towards Asian women, that it exists? What makes her kind of ignorant of that?
Man, I don't have a good answer for that, Shaggy. I don't. I'm sorry, but I'm surprised that if any guy, I hope that guy ended up in the hospital or had some sort of a problem whenever he would say that to you. I'm sure that he did, but look, I just these are things that is just so threatening to whites, to white men, that it's just we have we, and I say that as a white guy, and I'm trying to just put this get in the psyche of another white guy who would say something so stupid, that you're trying to be as superior, and you think others are attacking your superiority, and that's the best answer that I can come up with. I really don't have a good answer for it. I can't get in that mindset of being threatened because of race and all those things. I'll be flat out honest with you. I mean, one of the big reasons that I got into the University of Rhode Island as a master's student was, one, because obviously I was credentialed, but also the fact I wasn't from Rhode Island, and I was out of state of I was not in New England. I wasn't a native New Englander. I was from the Midwest. So this appeals to that. So what I'm getting at here is that I've felt the effect of not being part of the group and being let in because I'm from something else, and that may have caused someone else from the area to not get in because of me. And so what I'm getting at in the greater blabbing here is that there are those who will think that those of color, those of a different sex, are in some way, shape, or form attacking their very lifestyle because of diversity, because of the promotion of diversity, and I think that is just a crap thing to do. And I'm being nice with the language. Yeah. And I think that is just incredibly wrong, and that's all I got for you. I'm sorry.
Well, see, that's just it, is because anytime that me and you, being two crackers that we are, get on this show and honkify all of our news up, the thing that we forget is that there are two Americas, and a lot of people don't believe that, but my God, there's this guy called Childish Gambino. Look up a song called This Is America. That's the other America you might not be aware that is a big reality to a lot of minorities. When it comes to somebody sitting on a panel, let's just talk about inclusion, because a lot of minorities always feel locked out of these type of things. So, you're a person, you see somebody like Michelle Malkin on this panel, you're thinking, yay, we finally made it. And then you figured out we finally made it because we deny that we have importance to the white guy. Instead, we have to kind of belittle their fears by diminishing our role in their lives. At what point do minorities win inside of an organization like CPAC?
Yeah, I'm having a tough time thinking about it, to be honest. I don't. I mean, you have minority candidates and minority elected leaders from the Republican Party. You have Ted Cruz, you have Marco Rubio. There are several in the House of Representatives. There's his name is escaping me, but he's a senator from South Carolina who's he's African American. I can't think of his name right now, but I think the best example as to what I'm getting at here is when they become nominated for higher offices. Whether it's really, if it becomes down to really being president, they haven't nominated someone of color. They haven't nominated a woman to hold those offices, whereas the Democratic Party has. And now let's not be too naive here and think that the Democratic Party in its history has been incredibly angels, because they haven't. Just a quick party history here. The Democratic Party was a strong Southern states' rights, pro-slavery party up until the Progressive era and then leading up to the New Deal. So all of these things rather change in the past 100 years or so. And so this is kind of where we are here. I mean, those of minority race, those of women, those who are transgender, all of these other groups in America are going to have to figure out that the only way that they're going to get a voice is to be elected. And they're going to have to, if they want to further the Republican cause, they have to carry that banner, knowing full well about groups like CPAC, how ill-tempered the president is on particular things, and will just lash out. The attitude about them when it comes to Vice President Pence and his legislative history on those issues. This is what you have to deal with. And the only way that they can further that is to carry that banner, knowing full well as to what's going to happen and what people of their party think of them, and to win elections and to either make them irrelevant, those who are, have those kind of attitudes, or to just say, forget it, I'm not really going to mind them. They can have their own thought. Those are really my two thoughts about that as to how they can further. So that's what I got for you.
Yeah, because a lot of people would say, when it comes to CPAC, they just need to go ahead and pull off their human-like exterior and admit the reptilians are real and they exist within their organization. But reptile people aside, by the way, a bunch of conspiracy people are like, Alex Johnson's gone. Let's listen to the Shaggy Jenkins show now. No, we're not that show. We are not. The only thing that we put tinfoil on around here is chicken, so it don't get too crisp in the oven now. Yeah. So as long as we are talking about some certain things, I kind of want to bring this up because here's the deal when it comes to CPAC. CPAC has over the years, and I don't want to go through the long history of it, but CPAC got a shot in the alt-right direction a long time ago when they made Rush Limbaugh their keynote speaker. Now, after Rush Limbaugh came up there and basically derided the liberal-based media that is all against liberals everywhere are trying to besmear our campaign. Now, keep in mind, he was hooked on opioids at this time, so my interpretation of his voice is accurate. But
you are correct.
The thing is that he started the CPAC down this route of let's break away from the mainstream media kind of consensus of following news. Then Sarah Palin came up a couple of years later, also adding the fuel to the fake news fire, but saying that within CPAC and within the conservative motion, there was some guys that were only kind of conservative, and then there was the real conservatives, and we need to concentrate on the quote-unquote real conservatives. Advance this a couple more years, we have the alt-right, the Proud Boys, and Donald Trump, and the comments in the aftermath of Charlottesville. Whew. There. Now that we've got all of you caught up to speed, can we talk about Donald Trump's comments at CPAC, Drew?
I have no problem talking about that. I mean, I think what we have to really remember, at least for me, I'm not surprised by anything as to what he says anymore. I am so desensitized by what he says in front of Group A and Group B and all those things. He doesn't care, and that's a lot of the reason that people like him. He goes off script, as he did in this rambling speech that he yet again gave, and saying how people are just the sickest and they're just the worst of people, and I get campaigning. I've done that. You say some things in a bit more of a harsh way around people who who are going to support you in order to really rally them up and get excited about the campaign. I get that. But he takes it to a whole new level. Like when I say red meat, like we're talking that the meat has just come off the bone. We're not even talking about it being frozen for an extended amount of time. It's just cut off and then thrown right to them. And they just go after it like hyenas. And that's the biggest problem about our political thing, but that's a whole other conversation for another time. But that's my feeling on it. I mean, he just loves to throw out the red meat. I think he just loves the cheers. He gets intoxicated with it, almost this Mussolini-esque. That is very scary. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, because you just made me think of something. Mussolini also had a habit of hugging the flag. Oh boy, we are in
let's
so
not forget
much
how
trouble.
Mussolini ended. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any president wants to be ended like that, but
yeah, and keep in mind later on today, because a lot of times this show is heard early mornings, but later on today, the House is supposed to get together and start releasing in a very big sweeping kind of subpoena and document flurry storm everything from Trump's financial records to the Trump campaign, the Trump inauguration, the Trump nonprofit, and Trump charities. They are going hardcore when it's coming after the president. And it seems that that's why he took the opportunity at CPAC to kind of go hardcore at them. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, I think, I do. That's exactly a very good point there. Yeah. To rally them up and to say this is all fake. It goes back to a show we did, I think might have been a couple weeks ago, where that's his big attack on all those investigations, is to discredit and to attack. And that's his entire strategy. And he does it even with people who love what he has to say and will eat it up. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and let's go ahead and say that he talked bad about the Michael Cohen hearings. He talked bad about people involved around the hearings. He made several kind of soft racist remarks around political opponents of his, and a litany of long lies. Now, did Trump take CPAC as his own personal rally, or did he go there to represent a group that was kind of in existence before he arrived to the party?
I think this is a good chicken and the egg argument here. I think it's turned into his rally. It's turned into his. It wasn't always his. It's turned into his now. It was just like kind of what you said about Limbaugh and going into Palin. All of these little, all of these lead ups, and now it's his. Like, it's a reflection of him, and so he's eating it up. They're eating it up. It's his rally now. Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things that he did manage to bring up while he was there, besides the lies against the intelligence community, the mainstream media, what was really going on with North Vietnam's leader, Kim Jong-un, and let's just go ahead and say his numerous affairs that were brought up by Michael Cohen, besides playing a connect the dots of getting out of that one, Drew, one of the things he brought up was an executive order for free speech. When we talk about the president and free speech, I mean, nobody speaks freer than the president, but what is it about him that says that we have to do something? Oh my God, why are you looking so heartbroken and stressed, Drew? The president says he wants to sign an executive order for free speech protection on campuses that would cut federal funding if those campuses did not give free speech. What did he mean?
Yeah, he's talking about how he thinks professors like me are like these big commies, these big socialists, and all we do is indoctrinate. And if you have a different opinion than me, you're somehow wrong automatically, and you're disqualified, and you're drowned out, and all of these things. I mean, he's seeing, like the conservative talking head Milo. I can't pronounce his last name.
Yiannopoulos.
Him, and they talk about with Ann Coulter going to a college campus and being booed out, and all of these types of conservative talking heads going into these college campuses and trying to have a stage there, and then they get booed out or something along those lines. That's what he's trying to really bring. That's his attempt here. But I want your audience to really grasp this, is that this president does not respect the First Amendment, nor do I think he even knows what it says, because the first word of the First Amendment says Congress, which the 14th Amendment then brings into the states and says states, when what we're talking about here is government. The government cannot limit your speech, and now the Supreme Court has put limitations on it in reasonable manners, and all other types of things. Okay, so it's the government, not your business, not your school, not any of these things. Okay, so the first thing that I do, and what we're going to have to do now on, is read the First Amendment and say, what's the first thing? Who cannot prevent your freedom of speech? And it's going to say Congress, which is the government. That's what you have freedom of speech. That's where you have that freedom of speech from, is the government, not business, not your education, not your home, and not any of those things. It's the government, and his tweets on SNL, on the news media, the print media, all of those things, even Twitter, even some of these others, just constantly attacking them, saying we need to have a fair balance of these things. That's not the First Amendment, and you just have to scratch your head and go, you are violating it if you want to do these types of things. But he wants to make sure that college campuses have to have it, because he doesn't like the fact that his viewpoints, in some way, shape, or form, are being booed out by those who attend.
Yeah, let's go ahead and bring this up, because I went to college before, and I actually taught at a college. And let me go ahead and say, my first day of class with a new group of students, I always said, "Welcome to the revolution," and nobody took me serious. So maybe colleges aren't the best place to recruit revolutionary government coups.
No, they're not. I mean, here's just a little thing here. I mean, people, outsiders want to say that I can indoctrinate. I can hardly get a class to read the first 10 pages of a book.
Yeah.
Where's the indoctrination?
Yeah. Indoctrinate? I'm trying to sober them up. It's like, Bob, do you know which class you're in? Bobby, come back to me. Oh, God, he's seeing the light. But look, the thing is when we talk about the seeing the light, and we've only got about 2 minutes here left of our show. When we talk about seeing the light, Donald Trump seems to think that when it comes to colleges, being able to freely choose who is a speaker and, here's the crazy part, how the audience receives them, he seems to think that if those things are anti-him, once again, going back to the tweets and stuff, if it's against him, there should be a law against it. But people at CPAC really kind of ate this up. Why?
Because they feel like that the colleges are just liberal and they preach socialism, and they don't ever want to talk about conservative ideas. And if they do, they're put in a bad light, and they just feel that there's a liberal bias in education. They're sneezing at a formal education, and that's not entirely fair,
Or is it entirely true? I know.
Who worked hard to do those jobs.
Yeah, okay, so here's the thing, Drew, because we've got a minute left. I'm going to go ahead and clue people in as to what we are actually doing at colleges. I don't work at one anymore, but I did just recently leave another educational facility. Here's the thing that we're trying to do. We don't teach socialism. We're trying to teach sobriety, okay? We are not into, basic training so much as we are into getting your child, our students, into basic hygiene. There is a long step between teaching them flossing and teaching them the tenets of socialism. And sometimes we can't even get them to wear deodorant. Am I right?
You're exactly right. I mean, I look back at my days. There were a few days I didn't even shower, but now I work, and how in the world does anyone even want to sit next to me?
Yep.
But-
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, what we're really teaching your kids in college. Join us for our next show. Till then, love you, mean it. Get in by. We are out.